Hi, it's Dr. Jennifer Levine, and I'm here today with part 2 of our very exciting 3D rhinoplasty. So last time, just to catch you up in case you weren't here for our first segment, we had the lovely Kristen here who was here for her rhinoplasty and facial evaluation, and we had these gorgeous 3D images of her taken, and now we're going to kind of show you what those images look like and what would be the simulation of the changes that we discussed on her last visit. Just to remind you, Kristen wanted her nose, especially the tip, to be a little narrower and more defined. She felt that the tip was a little bit bulbous. Of course, we all know that Kristen's beautiful just the way she is, but these are just some refinements that she requested. So we're going to show her and you guys how they look on our 3D simulator. So if we go over here, we're able to see her image, and we're able to turn it around just to remind you in all different planes. Okay, so here we are back in that frontal projection, and what we're going to do is we're just going to look at some of the things that we can look at with this program. So this is actually, we're going to start at the very top with symmetry. Symmetry, no two sides of your face are exactly the same. We often say that the sides of your face are siblings. So here's her face in actuality, and here she would be if she had two right sides of her face, and here she would be if she had two left sides of her face. So even though Kristen is fairly symmetric, the right side of her face is a little larger than the left side of her face, and that's reflected on these composites. Another really important thing to look at is the proportion of the face. So we like to, in this horizontal projection, we'd like to break the face up into thirds, and this program is basically showing us, and these are ideal proportions, Kristen, just so you know, that the middle third and the lower third of their face are exactly the same, which is perfect. And what also is really important here is that the distance between the base of the nose and between the upper and lower lip should be about 1/3 to 2/3, which Kristen has fairly close to. So that's just indicating that these are more closer to ideal facial proportions, so it just kind of shows us how pretty Kristen really is. Now, here we have the face on the vertical projection should be broken up into fifths. So what this program does is it kind of focuses in on the middle fifths of the face, and again we're looking for these to be fairly similar, and as I already commented, the left side of her face is a little bit smaller than the right side of her face, which is visible even in her eyes. So we have 34, 34, and then 30, so the left side of her face is a little bit smaller. Then when we're looking at the relationship between the dorsum and the tip projection, this actually should be like a 3, 4, 5 triangle, and that ratio is about 0.6. So again, Kristen's pretty close here. What we do see is if we look at the topography, or kind of how the dorsum is, she's slightly low at the very top of her dorsum or bridge of her nose, and she's a little bit too high here closer to the tip. Then if we look at this angle here, this kind of tells us how rotated the tip is. So depending on if it's a man or a woman, this could be anywhere between 95 and 115 degrees. And we see that Kristen is just right for women at 106 degrees. And again, her nasal frontal angle is a little bit more than it should be because she has a little bit of a dip right here, but it's still just fine. We have the nasofacial angle here, which ideally is around 36 degrees. Sorry if you missed my nasal frontal angle. This should be about 115 to 130. Going back to the nasofrontal angle, this should be around 36 degrees, and we see it's about 29. And if we look at the nasal-mental angle, that's a little bit more than we would like, but it's still very acceptable. The other thing that's important to look at is the nose straight, which for Kristen, her nose is perfect. There's no deviation, so that's just right, and we don't have to worry about anything being crooked. But again, if we look at the dorsal height, we can see that she's a little low here and a little too high here. So then we go to the fun part of this program, which is going to kind of let us see what kind of simulation we could do, which is always really fun. So here's a simulation of what we can do to the dorsum. So we can make her nose either really, really pointy like Pinocchio, or kind of bring it down much lower. If we wanted to show her how this would look at the nasofrontal angle that was a little bit low, we can take that up or down. We could also play around with her tip. If we wanted to make her nose narrower, we can narrow it there. And we could also narrow it progressively as we go down. We can take the base in. We can play around with the tip rotation. So these are just some things that we could do. And then another thing that has bothered Kristen is this area over here, which is her submental area, and we can take that up just like that, just to give you an idea, because most of the time, if you're going to be doing rhinoplasty, you might need some other procedures. So Kristen doesn't have this problem because her chin is actually in great position, but often people might benefit from a chin implant or a submental liposuction, so we always want to assess those areas while we're doing a rhinoplasty. And then, if we want to see what our results look like, then you can see something like this. And we can kind of turn them around or look at them from the other side. So that's like a really good point. What I like about this program is with the other 2D simulations, it was really, really hard to show what these changes would look like in other views except for the profile. The profile was really the best way to do the other simulations. And people would say, that looks great, but how do I look from the front? Or how do I look from the 3/4? And you really couldn't do that. So with this program, even making changes in any of the projections, you then can translate into the entire face. So I really find it to be extremely helpful, both because it gives the patient a great idea of how they'll actually look, and it also forces us to look at those ideal facial proportions, which are really, really important, because not only do we want a beautiful result, we want a natural looking result. And we know that in order for it to look natural, it has to fall into these ranges of what we know are ideal facial proportions. And if we're going to make something too extreme or fall out of those things, it's just going to be too much and it will look surgical, and that kind of defeats the purpose of everything that we're doing. Oh, are there any questions?
So what other procedures can you show a patient's simulations? We don't have to do it on the screen, but what other things can patients see?
Oh, okay. So this is also really helpful for showing the chin augmentation. As I said before, very often someone doesn't know what changing their chin will do for them, but you can see with this program it's quite easy to change the chin. The other thing that's very helpful is that we can look at all different things. One of the features that I like to use the most is something called resurface, because I want everyone's skin to be flawless and beautiful. So I could take an area and kind of click on it, and then we could kind of show how it would look if it was resurfaced. So that kind of shows you what the skin would look like, smoother. Kristen doesn't have any wrinkles, but it also has the ability to erase wrinkles. We can also take areas, let's see, go to, sorry, we're gonna go, let me just undo that, since I have, here we go. So now we can go to this, and let's say if I wanted to lift her cheek, not that she needs to, but I can move tissue, or let's say if she were older and I wanted to move things along the jawline, then I can also lift that. Not that that's necessary for her, but it has a lot of other applications. So it's great. All right. Well, if there are no other questions at this time, I welcome you to make an appointment to come in for your very own 3D consultation. It's loads of fun, a little humbling, but really, really great. And we'd love to see you. Have a great day.